We will not only deal with those who dare attack America, we will deal with those who harbor them and feed them and house them. Make no mistake about it. Underneath our tears is the strong determination of America to win this war. And we will win it.
Now, one critical element for a president at a time of crisis is the support of the United States Congress. The Congress has responded this week in an overwhelmingly bipartisan manner, approving $40 billion in emergency spending for the relief, the recovery efforts, the early stages of the investigation, and some military buildup as well, the call-up of the reserves. For one, the Congress also passing with just one dissenting vote a resolution authorizing the president to use force to retaliate if he deems that necessary. But as our CNN congressional correspondent Kate Snow notes, even amid all these debates, it's not just about the business of the Congress. For some members, the events of recent days have taken a painful personal toll.
Joseph Crowley is a congressman representing Queens and the Bronx, but he's also from a family of firefighters and police officers, a family missing one of their own. The congressman's cousin, New York Fire Battalion Chief John Moran.
John is a wonderful husband and the father of 2 small children, beautiful boys.
Duty put Moran at the World Trade Center Tuesday morning. His brother Michael called him. Terrorists had just flown a second plane into the South Tower. Michael told him to be careful. I know, I saw it, John told his brother. No one knows if he went inside. No one knows where he is now. The next day, the congressman toured the area. Someone constituents rely on for answers finds himself, like so many other Americans, helpless.
Under these circumstances, when you're talking about the magnitude of over 300 firefighters and police officers and emergency technicians who are lost, not to mention the tens, possibly hundreds and thousands of people that are missing right now, that doesn't matter who you are, and no one is exempt from the pain and the anguish of having to wait for that information.
Unlike other Americans, Crowley has the power to make law, his grief reinforcing his resolve.
I'm a pretty tolerant guy, and but I have really strong feelings about the people who did this, and I haven't really, I don't think I've actually taken it all in yet, and I want something to be done.
John Moran was already a hero in Queens. On Father's Day, he helped fight a fire that killed 3 men. At that time, he told Dateline NBC, the firefighter performs one act of bravery in his career, and that's when he takes the oath of office. After that, everything else is in the line of duty.
My cousin John. That's all the firemen and firewomen and firefighters, police officers, all these people are very special people. We don't give them enough due. And you can multiply John Moran by 300 more people. There are heroes here that people will never know.
Kate Snow, CNN, Capitol Hill.
Now joining me now, another member of the New York congressional delegation, Congressman Tom Reynolds, a Republican. Tough to watch that piece, isn't it?
It is tough to watch it, and I went up with Joe yesterday, and so many stories like that, not just members of Congress that know people from New York, as I and others have, but the country. Whether they went to college at Princeton, as one friend of mine said, or they worked together in another part of New York, and now they know that those people are missing in the city. All this coverage for a week has been devastating to watch. But when you go there, and you know the World Trade Center and the symbol of what that is of capitalism and the strength of democracy in America, and see it gone as a landmark, to see the rubble. But you talk to the spirit of those firemen and those cops and those emergency workers, and they say they're working around the clock because they believe that there's pockets of airspace down there that brings the hope of life for rescue. In what is about 5 to 7 stories below the ground. We think of Ground Zero with the rubble that's now piled on where the World Trade Center was, but there's so much down below it. And to see the spirit as they worked, and as they stopped moments to chant USA to the president, and the president kind of exchanging that hope and support. It was a tremendous thing to see. But the most important thing is the commitment of those rescue workers, as Joe Crowley said, the heroes, the firemen and the cops and the emergency workers who, one, lost their life, and two, are still working there to find those who are still alive.
The president said he was struck by the anger as he was shaking hands, and you were up there with him, of the firefighters, people telling him, you know, go get them, retaliate. What's taking so long?
This country's ready for retaliation.
Do you think, though, that those firefighters, those rescue workers, your colleagues in the Congress, understand that what the president is considering here could involve a sustained military campaign with ground troops?
Well, I think that's the process over the next couple days and weeks to convey to America what I think we in Congress know is that you don't take a resolution that passed almost unanimous last night with only one dissenting vote on use of force and have the type of latitude the Congress gave the president without knowing that that is a very significant step towards bringing justice through retaliation.
The last time a major scene of terrorism in this country, it was a domestic act of terrorism in Oklahoma City. The site of that tragic bombing now turned into a memorial. As you were walking through the rubble up at the World Trade Center yesterday, what should be done at that site? Rebuild an office tower, a memorial?
John, it's so early to know. The important thing is to try to get the debris and rubble cleared away so we can find people who may be alive and the ability to bury our dead. But you don't really replace the World Trade Center in the image of what that was for the last 30 years in the skyline of New York. And that'll be up to the people of New York and this country as we move forward. But right now we've got to rescue the people that are alive and bury our dead and move towards bringing the perpetrators to justice.
All right, Tom Reynolds, Congressman from New York, we thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us today. Now back to Paula Zahn, standing by in Manhattan.
Thanks so much, John. There has been much debate about what impact this tragedy will ultimately have on the economy. We are already beginning to see its toll. Continental Airlines announced today because of the expected drop-off in air travel, it is going to cut its schedule by 20% and furlough 12,000 people. It's important to note that Republican and Democratic leaders in the House have already agreed in principle to a $2.5 billion emergency bailout package for U.S. airlines in an industry that wasn't very healthy going into this. They are very concerned because of all the flight cancellations that many major airlines could face bankruptcy. It was estimated in the New York Times today that these airlines have lost anywhere from $100 million a day to $275 million a day. So I guess for the folks that study this stuff, this announcement from Continental Airlines does not come as a great surprise. You have seen how people from all over the country who have come to New York offering their services. We wanted to give you an idea of how people in other parts of the country are reacting to the tragic news coming out of Pennsylvania, coming out of New York and Washington, D.C. And for that, we go to Jeff Flock, who is standing by in Des Moines. Where are you right now, Jeff?
Well, Paula, fittingly enough, I am at a fire station here in Des Moines, Iowa, where earlier this morning some of the men you see behind me were gathered around a television watching the funeral mass for one of their own. Reports of an entire engine company lost in New York, went to the fire, didn't come back. Can you even conceive of that this morning, standing here in Des Moines, Iowa, at your fire station?
It's very hard for us to fathom the fact that they lost a great number of firefighters. The city of Des Moines has approximately 287 firefighters, and to lose a whole company, it's just unreal.
As you look at that funeral, each of you out here with a black ribbon on to symbolize that. You told me the loss of any one firefighter anywhere in the nation, but this enormity of loss.
Yeah, it's absolutely, it's hard to imagine. You know, we sit around, we watch the coverage of this, and we don't even know what to say. You know, we're totally in awe. It's hard to imagine. Our thoughts and prayers go out to everybody, the rescuers and the people who have lost their lives. And
I've got to ask you, as firefighters, since the events of this week, when the bell rings, when you have news of a explosion or a fire, now what goes through your mind differently from what went through it before?
Well, I think we've always had the thought in the back of our mind that a tragedy could happen, that we always have to be aware of what's going on around us. I think now we'll probably be a little more aware, maybe take an extra second to think about what we're doing and what's going on, just to make sure that we stay as safe as possible.
In terms of where things go from here, I know this gentleman, you're a reservist, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
And certainly many firefighters across this nation are also in the reserves. What's your unit? And we're talking about calling up, the U.S. is, tens of thousands of reservists. Are you ready to go, and what would you do?
Yes, sir. I'm a member of the 194th Long Range Surveillance Detachment of the Iowa National Guard. And if they do call us up, more than willing and able to go. I served in Iraq during Desert Storm, and I know I'm ready to go. And if the President calls for that.
And lastly, what should the response be?
I think it should
Jeff,
be strong,
I hate to do this
severe.
to you, but Justice Clarence Thomas is now eulogizing Barbara Olson at her memorial service
Witness
in
the worst
Virginia.
Events of a lifetime was horrific enough. Then, as so many in this wonderful country, to have personal grief piled abruptly and unmercifully upon that horror is so very difficult. But even through destruction's debris, death cannot be proud. For in the words of the poet John Donne, one short sleep past, we wake eternally. On this earth, Barbara strided boldly through life, full of cheer and verve, shying from no challenge or obstacle. She was irrepressible in the fullest sense. What seemed an impediment to most was but a pebble to Barbara. On matters of principle, there was something Churchillian about her and about her attitude, ignoring all torpedoes and charging full speed ahead, but doing so with grace and charm. Though I did not know her at the time, she charged headlong into the fray to defend me during the difficulties of my confirmation to the court. Yet in the almost 10 years that I have known her, she never saw fit to mention this to me, to mention the fact that she had helped me during a difficult time. That is so characteristically Barbara, giving much, expecting nothing in return. Barbara and Ted are as one in our lives, two hearts beating as one. They are inseparable. Even those final minutes of crisis and finality could not separate them, nor will death do so. For Barbara's spirit survives in each of us, just as the spirit of our great country lives on. She lives in our memories, now dampened by tears and made hazy by grief. But she's here, her ever-present high heels clicking across the floors of this cathedral and through all the passageways of our sentiments. In 1983, when my grandparents died within 1 month of each other, life seemed without purpose. With God's help and his guidance, I vowed to live the remainder of my life as a monument to theirs and to that spirit that infused their lives. Let us, as friends of Ted and Barbara, live our lives with that spirit that filled and animated her life, that wonderful spirit that is yet one more gift she has left as a part of her legacy. We are all better for having known her, and we will all be better for remembering her and incorporating her spirit into our lives. Indeed, that spirit will be required to overcome what is now before us and what lies ahead. She gave her last full measure. We must do likewise. Lord, give her eternal rest and let her share your glory. Amen.
It is rare to see a Supreme Court justice speak publicly. It is certainly not